Hi, my name's Sonjia and this is my channel, See It Then, See It Now. Today's video has some of my favourite things in. Recycling, okay it's only a box, but recycling, decoupaging, playing with clay, and most importantly the people that I've shown the before and after picture to look at me completely astonished and in disbelief and think that I'm making it up, that I created this just from a cardboard box. Let's take a look. I started by creating a paper template in the shape I wanted the top of the box to be. I used a compass to create the semicircle shape, and just to make sure that I had this centred correctly, I folded the paper in half before cutting out the shape. The walls of this box were too flimsy, so using the paper template, I started cutting pieces of cardboard to shape so that I could use them to strengthen the walls. I used 2 pieces per side. I cut off the top of the box to match the shape and then used PVA and hot glue to glue each piece in place, so 10 pieces altogether, 8 for the sides and 2 for the bottom. My inspiration for this craft came from something I saw on Pinterest, and when I saw this box I thought it was the perfect size for the project. Unfortunately it just needed strengthening a little bit before we could get to the fun stuff. Once I had all the pieces of card in place, I covered all the edges with masking tape. I then covered the whole box with a layer of napkin. At this point, I wasn't sure how I was going to decorate this or exactly what look I was going for, and once I had it covered in napkin and it was dry, I decided to go over the whole thing with a layer of brown paper. I wish I could give you guys a logical explanation as to why I did this, but I can't. The layering helps to strengthen the box, but I think I was just a bit lost on exactly what I wanted to do with it, and I think I kind of wanted some texture but felt like the napkin was a little bit too much. I'm not sure, but I covered it with brown paper. Once I had this covered with the brown paper, I set it to one side to dry, and that is where it sat for several months. It was a mixture of me not really knowing what I wanted to do with it and other projects taking priority. So I eventually picked this project back up and I started by giving it all a coat of white acrylic paint. To be honest, I still wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do with it at this point. I decided to make some moulds, and I've never had much success with clay in moulds that are really intricate and delicate. But I've recently watched a YouTube video by Mason Creations etc, and one of the tips was to put the clay in the freezer for about 20 minutes before removing it from the moulds. Oh my, this is a total game changer. It worked amazingly well. I will link the video in the description box, but amazing tip. The only downside is if you need a few of the same mould and you only have the one mould, it obviously slows the process down because you have to keep waiting 20 minutes. I created a few different moulds and had a play about, and once I was happy with the design and I had enough to cover the box, I glued them all in place with PVA. Once I had the clay design on the front, I decided to glue some clay along the rim across the top of the box at the front and the back. The rim wasn't looking particularly sparkling, so I thought the clay would neaten that up. I started gluing it on across the top, but then I was concerned the clay on the front that was not yet dry would slide down the box if I had the box stood up on its end. But if I lay it down, I thought the clay on the trim would slide inside the box. So to counteract that, I stuck some cardboard in the top of the box to support the clay trim so that I could keep the box laid down on its back until the glue was dry. I hope that all makes sense. Probably the best thing to do would have been to do the front design, let that dry, and then start messing about with the top. But I had the clay out, I started doing it, and it was a bit of an afterthought. Oh, hang on a minute, it's all going to go pear-shaped here, it's all going to slide. But I wanted to explain why I've got a big piece of cardboard stuffed in the top of the box. And that's why. So I finally made a decision on how I wanted the outside of this box to look, and I decided to use baking soda and white acrylic paint to add texture. I dabbed the paint on thick and then dabbed over it with a sponge just to get the desired texture. Once I had the centre part inside the clay circle, it's not quite a circle, but inside that clay bit, once I had that all white, I did take a little bit of the textured paint and add a tiny bit of brown just to give it an off-white colour, and I went round the outside part with the more off-white, and where I felt like there was a little bit too much of the brown, I went over it with a bit more of the white just to get the desired effect. I just didn't want it to be pristine white everywhere. I wanted there to be slightly off-white areas. I did cover the entire outside of the box, and also I dabbed inside as best I could as well to get texture on the inside of the box as well. Once the paint was dry, it was on to decoupaging this beautiful rose napkin to the centre of the box. I always tear the edges of the napkin to ensure the edges blend in. I wanted to remove as much of this white background as possible, so I used a wet paintbrush and went as close to the design as I dare and tore off the excess. I put glue on the box, popped on the napkin and dabbed it with a sponge to remove any wrinkles. I then added more glue, repeating the process from the middle out to the edges. I have covered decoupage in more detail in other videos, and if you're new to decoupage, I recommend it. It's one of my favourite crafts. I repeated the process with other pieces of napkin until I had a beautiful design on the front of the box. Once the napkin was dry, I sealed it with a coat of Mod Podge. I bought these little legs from Amazon, thought they'd look pretty on the bottom of the box, but unfortunately they're the wrong colour, so I got out the silver gilding wax. I then highlighted the moulds with the silver gilding wax, and this is starting to look really pretty. I'm loving it. Once the wax was dry, I gave the whole box a coat of clear matte varnish. All that was left to do was to add the legs, and I wasn't sure how well the legs would attach with the little screws alone, so I used Gorilla Glue just to make sure, and then added 2 little screws to the bottom of each leg. I struggled finding a mirror for this project. Years ago, hand mirrors like this were on sale everywhere, but it would appear not so much anymore. I could find an expensive, already decorated one, but to find an inexpensive one to decorate up was quite difficult. Anyway, I ended up with this black one, and I started by giving it 2 coats of white chalk paint. In fact, I pretty much did the exact same thing with this mirror as I did with the box. It matches really well. So once the paint was dry, I glued on some clay embellishments. I then used the same texture paint as I did with the box, dabbing with a sponge to get the desired texture. I decoupaged on a rose that matched the one on the box into the centre of the back of the mirror, and I highlighted all the moulds with the silver gilding wax. I also highlighted the raised edge around the mirror and down the handle. One thing that I do find though when you're painting a mirror frame is you never get an absolutely brilliant finish unless you take the mirror completely out of the frame. When you paint up to the mirror's edge, no matter what method you use, it's never that brilliant in my opinion. I always feel like you can, even if you like really carefully tape right up to the edge, or sometimes I've tried putting a piece of paper right underneath in between the mirror and the frame and painting and getting the paint all the way onto the paper, but no matter what I've tried, I never ever get a complete professional look finish right up against the glass. So I didn't even try with this. I took the paint to the edge of the top part of the frame and just left a black rim around the edge of where the glass was. So you can't really see it in this video, but when the mirror's the other way up, you can actually just see a little bit of black all the way around. But it was easier to get a nice finish leaving that little black edge. I just thought it looked better. Personal preference. Now onto the brush, and I started by masking off the bristles just to protect them from, well, my sloppy painting. Once I had them covered up, I painted the whole thing with 2 coats of white chalk paint. Now, once I started painting this with the chalk paint, I decided not to go right up to the edge of the bristles with the paint. I decided that if I didn't get an absolutely pristine edge, it was going to look a mess. And I thought it would be easier to get a nice edge if I just painted the sides and left that edge up to the bristles blue. So as you can see here, I'm just painting neatly up the side, but not taking it around the corner and all the way up to the bristles. Once the paint was dry, it was on to decoupaging the back of the brush, and I used the same napkin, just a larger part of the design, and I was really pushed for time because me and the supervisor were going out, so I just went for it and I did the whole piece in one go. So there was no just putting the glue down the centre and working my way out. I literally just covered the whole of the back of the brush with glue and just went for it, and luckily it was fine, no creases, it went on really well. I started to decoupage the handle with the same design, but I didn't like it. I felt like it was too much of the same, so I took that off and decided to try a little bit of an experiment. That's right, I wait until we're 10 minutes from going out the door and decide to start messing about and experimenting. But here goes, this is what I did. So, when I did the dresser in the guest bedroom, I used a stamp and paint and it worked really well. So I thought I would try stamping the paint onto napkin. Now, I've only ever used ink on stamps when I've used them on napkins for decoupage. So I did think that this wasn't going to work, to be honest. I thought that the paint on the napkin, I was fully expecting the paint to run once the glue had wet the napkin and for it not to work, but it wasn't the case at all and it worked great. I was able to decoupage some of this writing onto the handle just to break up the pattern. I went out and when I come back it was nice and dry and I was able to continue with the decoupaging, but I really am surprised that this worked and I will be doing this again. It's great. If you don't have the colour ink that you want, then just use some paint, it's fine. Mix up any colour you want with the paint, stamp it on to the napkin. Make sure something's underneath though, because the ink went through onto the cardboard underneath and it stuck to the cardboard a little bit, so I did have to peel that off once it was dry. But no, it went on, it didn't smudge once it was wet with the glue. It worked really well. So I used bits of the napkin and bits of this writing to decoupage the handle and it just broke it up nicely. So with the back, the sides and the handle all looking the part, I needed to sort out that edge up to where the bristles start. I started by sanding the decoupage edge down once it was all dry, just to get a neat finish. I looked at the options, I looked at lace, beads, all sorts of things, and in the end I decided that to get the best finish I just needed to decoupage over the blue. So this is one of those few occasions where I would decoupage using a straight uniformed edge. So I carefully glued along the edge near to the bristles and then I put the straight edge of the napkin against the edge of the bristles and I kept the outer edge nice and toned so that it would blend into the existing pattern. It was a little bit fiddly, but it worked perfectly fine and the edge looked nice and neat when it was finished. Once I had this all covered and it was dry, I sealed it all with a coat of clear matte varnish. And here's what it looked like when it was finished, a close-up of the edge, and as you can see it looks nice and neat right up to the edge of the bristles. Okay, lastly we're on to the comb, and I just simply painted this with 2 coats of white chalk paint and then decoupaged it. I didn't paint the needles of the comb because I wanted the comb to still be usable and I wasn't sure if painting them would work. I tried googling it, but all I was getting was painting with a comb, which looks lots of fun by the way, but it wasn't telling me whether you could paint a comb. So this doesn't look exactly how I would have liked it to look with the black needles. I'm fine with it though because only the handle's going to show out of the top of the box, and I would have preferred to have done this with a white comb, but this black one came with the mirror, and rather than go buy another comb, I might as well just use the one that I had. So I know it doesn't look absolutely marvellous with the black comb, black needles, but yeah, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. So let's have a reminder and see it then. And let's see it now. I absolutely love how this turned out. I actually think I like this more than I do the inspiration piece that I saw on Pinterest, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button too. If you're not yet subscribed, then do please consider subscribing. It does help my channel to grow, and I have got stuck in a little bit of a rut, and I need some subscribers just to push me back in that right direction, get me to that my next goal, which is that 500 mark. So it would be really great. If you're not subscribed and you did enjoy this, then please do consider subscribing for me. I've got lots of stuff coming on the guest bedroom, more furniture upcycles, more decor for the room. I've created an Easter basket for the local care home that will be coming very soon. Lots and lots of stuff in the pipeline, so if you're not yet subscribed, then please do consider subscribing. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and all that is left to say is thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate that, and I will see you soon in the next one. Bye!